A card flip animation involves two different screens. When you switch from one screen to the other, you flip the screens horizontally in one direction, and when you return, you flip back in the other direction. I'm going to describe how to implement this sort of animation in a version of my project that uses fragments to manage the primary screen. This project, named Card Flip, has an About screen. First, I'll show you what it looks like, then I'll describe how it's currently implemented. The primary screen shows a list of data. As always in my sample application, I can click on an item in the list and go to the detail screen, and then return. But this application also has something called an About screen, and I can get to it through the Options menu. When I choose About, I see a long bit of scrollable text, and then when I click the back button, I return to the list. Here's how this is implemented in this version of my app. My list is stored in a class named Item List Fragment, and it's a subclass of the Android List Fragment class. That's what's showing all the data in the primary list. The About screen is defined in this fragment, About fragment, and it loads a layout file that actually displays all of the required text. In the main activity class, as the application starts up, I'm loading the list fragment into a fragment container that's in my layout file. This fragment container is a frame layout. Then, when the user chooses About from the Options menu, I'm running this method named viewAbout, and first it's checking a property named mShowingAbout to see if the About screen is already displayed, but then if it isn't, it's creating an instance of the About fragment class and then replacing the existing list fragment to display the About fragment. It's also adding the new fragment to the backstack, and that's what makes it possible for the user to return to the list by clicking on or pressing the back button. So this is basic fragment management. But again, right now, the transition from one screen to another is abrupt, and I want to animate it. Here are the steps. First of all, I'm going to be using a set of XML files that I've already defined and I've included in the exercise files folder. I'm going to be placing those in a subdirectory of the resources directory named Animator. So I'll go to my resources directory, and I'll create the new directory, and I'll name it Animator. Make sure you name it exactly this. Now, you might remember if you've been following along with other videos in this course that sometimes I use a subdirectory named Anim, or A-N-I-M. That's for the old-style view animations. This time, I'm going to be using the newer property animations and the Object Animator class, and the rules for that kind of animation are just different. The name of this subdirectory has to be Animator. So there's my directory, and now I'll go get my XML files from my exercise files. I'll go to the exercise files, then to the directory for this chapter and for this video, and then I'll open the directory Animation XML. I'll select these 4 files and copy them to the clipboard. Then I'll return to Android Studio, and I'll paste them into the Animator directory. When prompted, click OK. And that might open the first file in your editor. Here's what these files look like. They're defining instances of the Object Animator class, and they're setting starting and ending values, declaring the property name, and the duration. This file starts by setting the alpha or transparency to 0 with a duration of 0, and then it's flipping the card 180 degrees with the rotation Y property, and then animating to an alpha value of 1 over a duration of 1 second. Now notice there's an error because these integer resources don't yet exist. I need to declare 2 resources named cardFlipTimeFull and cardFlipTimeHalf. I'll do that in the Values directory under Resources. I'll create a new Values resource file, and I'll name it integers.xml, and then I'll declare 2 integer values. The first one will be named cardFlipTimeFull, and its value will be 300. I'll duplicate that, and this version will be 150, and its name will end with half. Then I'll come back to my XML file, and I'll see that the errors have gone away because now I have valid references to those resources. Now again, there are 4 different XML files. There's one that ends with left out, and that only has 2 object animators, and there's a write in and a write out. And they're both affecting the rotation and the alpha, or transparency. So now let's return to the main activity. Here's how we'll use these animations. Place the cursor after the call to begin transaction. Make sure you put this code here. If you put it anywhere else in this chain of calls, it won't work. Then add a call to a method named setCustomAnimations, and then pass in references to your 4 animations. The first one is named r.animator.cardFlip I'll put the comma there, and then I'll duplicate that 3 times. I'll erase the comma from the last call. Then I'll change the names of the animations that I'm using. The setCustomAnimations method has 2 versions. One of them only takes 2 animations, but that's the one you would use if you're not using the backstack. If you're using the backstack, you need 4 animations. One for enter and one for exit, and one for pop enter and one for pop exit. The pop animations happen when you return to the original fragment. I'll just close up this code a bit, and now I'm ready to test the app again. To make sure you're loading everything that's needed to run these animations, click the Stop App button on the toolbar, or press the associated keyboard shortcut, and then run the app again. You have to do that in Android Studio 2.1 and later, because otherwise, with the new Instant Run capability, you might not be running the most recent version of the application. Then I'll go back to my emulator, and I'll request the About screen, and there's my animation. I'll click the Back button, and I'm returning now to the list fragment. I'll go to the About screen again, and then I'll try to load the About option again, and I go back, and that's because in the main activity, in the View About method, there's code to programmatically pop the backstack if I'm already showing the About screen. So those are the steps for using property animations when you're also working with fragments. Again, you can define your object animator objects in XML and then run the animations as part of your fragment transaction. And I've demonstrated how to do a card flip here, but the same techniques will work with any other kind of animation that's supported with property animations.